Chapter 109 Sleep. Then they came out the narrow valley, and at once she saw the reason. There stood Peter and Edmund and all the rest of Asian's army fighting desperately against the crowd of horrible creatures whom she had seen last night. Only now, in the daylight, they looked even stranger and more evil and more deformed. I stopped there. I had been reading for over an hour and sleep still didn't come. It was almost 2 a.m. Everyone else was asleep. I had my flashlight on under the sleeping bag, and maybe the light was white. I couldn't sleep, but I was too afraid to turn it off. I was afraid of how dark it was outside the sleeping bag. When we got back to our section in front of the movie screen, no one had even noticed we had been gone. Mr. Tussman and Miss Rubin and Summer and all the rest of the kids were just watching the movie. They had no clue how something bad had almost happened to me and Jack. It's so weird how that can be. How you could have a night that's the worst in your life, but to everybody else it's just an ordinary night. Like on my calendar at home, I would mark this as being one of the most horrific days of my life. This and the days Daisy died. But for the rest of the world, this was just an ordinary day. Or maybe it was even a good day. Maybe somebody won the lottery today. Almost Miles and Harry brought me and Jack over to where we had been sitting before, with Summer and Maya and Red. And then they went and sat where they had been sitting before, with Ximena and Savannah and their group. In a way, everything was exactly as we had left it before when we went looking for the toys. The sky was the same, the movie was the same, everyone's face was the same, mine was the same. But something was different, something had changed. I could see Amos and Miles and Harry telling their group what had just happened. I knew they were talking about it because they kept looking over at me while they were talking. Even though the movie was still playing, people were whispering about it in the dark. News like that spreads fast. It was what people were talking about on the bus ride back to the cabins. All the girls, even girls I didn't know very well, were asking me if I was okay. The boys were all talking about getting revenge on a group of seventh grade jocks, trying to figure out what school they were from. I wasn't planning on telling the teachers about any of what had happened, but they found out anyway. Maybe it was the torn sweater and the bloody elbow, or maybe it's just that teachers heard her everything. When we got back to the car, Mr. Tussman looked me to the first aid office, and while I was getting my elbow clean and bandaged up by the consigners, Mr. Tussman and the computer were in the next room talking with Amos and Jack and Harry and Miles, trying to get a description of the troublemakers. When he asked me about them a little later, I said I couldn't remember their faces at all. Which wasn't true. Is their faces I kept seeing every time I closed my eyes to sleep. The look of total horror on the girl's face when she first saw me. The way the kid with his flashlight Eddie looked at me as he talked to me like he hated me. Like a lamb to the slaughter, I remember Dad saying that ages ago, but tonight I think I finally got what it meant. That's all, chapter 109.
Chapter 110. Moms were waiting for me in front of the school along with all the parents when the bus arrived. Mr. Tussman told me on the bus ride home that they had called my parents to tell them there had been a situation the night before, but everyone was fine. He said the camp director and several of the counselors were looking for the hearing it in the morning while we or went swimming in the lake, but they couldn't find it anywhere. Brookwood would reimburse us the cost of the hearing aids, he said. They felt bad about what happened. I wondered if Eddie had taken my hearing aids with him as kind of a souvenir. Something to remember the of. Mom gave me a tire when I got off the bus, but she didn't tell me with reason since I thought she might. Her heart felt good and I didn't take it off like some other kids were doing with their parents' hearts. The bus driver started unloading our duffel bags, and I went to find my white mom talked to Mr. Tussman and Miss Ruby, who had got over her to her as I rode my back toward her. A lot of kids who don't usually say anything to me were nodding hello or patting my back as I walked by them. Ready? Mom said when she saw me. She took my duffel bag and I didn't even try to hold onto it. I was fine with her carrying it. If she had wanted to carry me on her shoulders, I would have been fine with that too, to be truthful. As we started to walk away, Mr. Tussman gave me a quick tie hug but didn't say anything.
Chapter 112 Bear. We call the puppy Bear because when Mom first saw him, she said he looked just like a little bear cub. I said that's what we should call him, and everyone agreed that was a perfect name. I took the next day off from school not because my elbow was hurting me, which is worse, but so I could play with Bear all day long. Mom let Vera stay home from school too, so the two of us took turns cuddling with Bear and playing tug of war with him. We had kept on of Daisy's old toys, and we brought them out now to see which one he would like best. It was fun hanging out with Vera all day, just the two of us. It was like old times, like before I started going to school. Back then I couldn't wait for her to come home from school so she could play with me before starting her homework. Now that we're older, though, and I'm going to school and have friends of my own that I hang out with, we never do that anymore. So it was nice hanging out with her, laughing and playing. I think she liked it too.
This is chapter 113, The Sift. When I went back to school the next day, the first thing I noticed was that there was a big shift in the way things were, a monumental shift, a seismic shift, maybe even a cosmic shift. Whatever you want to call it, it was a big shift. Everyone, not just in our grade, but every grade, had heard about what had happened to us with the 7th graders. So suddenly I wasn't known for what I had always been known for, but for this other thing that had happened. And the story of what had happened had gotten bigger and bigger each time it was told. 2 days later, the way the story went was that Amos had gotten into a major fist fight with a kid, and Miles and Henry and Jack had thrown some punches at the other guys, too. And the escape across the field became this whole long adventure through a cornfield maze and into the deep dark woods. Jack's version of the story was probably the best, because he's so funny, but in whatever version of the story, and no matter who was telling it, two things always stay the same. I got picked on because of my face and Jack defended me, and those guys, Amos, Henry, and Miles, protected me. And now that they protected me, I was different to them. It was like I was one of them. They all call me a little dude now. Even the jocks. These big dudes I barely even knew before would knuckle punch me in the hallways now. Another thing to come out of it was that Amos became super popular in Julian because he missed the whole thing was really out of the loop. Miles and Henry were hanging out with Amos all the time now, like the squished best friend. I like to be able to say that Julian started treating me better too, but that wouldn't be true. He still gave me dirty looks across the room. He still never talked to me or Jack, but he was the only one who was like that now. And me and Jack, we couldn't care less.
Dogs. The day before the last day of school, Mr. Touchman called me into his office to tell me they had found out the names of the 7th graders from the nature retreat. He read off a bunch of names that didn't mean anything to me, and then he said the last name, Edward Johnson. I nodded. You recognize the name? He said. They called him Eddie. Right. Well, they found this in Edward's locker. He handed me what was left of my hearing aid headband. The right piece was completely gone and the left one was mangled. The band that connected the two, the lower part, was bent down the middle. His school wants to know if you want to press charges, said Mr. Touchman. I looked at my hearing aid. No, I don't think so. I shrugged. I'm being fitted for new ones anyway. Why don't you talk about it with your parents tonight? I'll call your mom tomorrow to talk about it with her too. Will they go to jail? I asked. No, not jail, but they would probably go to juvenile court. And maybe they will learn a lesson that way. Trust me, that etiquette is not learning any lessons, I joked. He sat down behind his desk. Augie, why don't you sit down a second? He said. I sat down. All the things on his desk were the same as when I first walked into his office last summer. The same mirrored cube, the same little globe floating in the air that felt like ages ago. Hard to believe this year is almost over, huh? He said, almost like he was reading my mind. Yeah. Has it been a good year for you, Augie? Has it been okay? Yeah, it's been good, I nodded. I know academically it's been a great year for you. You're one of our top students. Congrats on the high honor roll. Thanks, yeah, that's cool. But I know it's had its share of ups and downs, he said, raising his eyebrows. Certainly that night at the nature reserve was one of the low points. Yeah, I nodded, but it was also kind of good too. In what way? Yeah, well, you know how people stood up for me and stuff. That was pretty wonderful, he said, smiling. Yeah, I know in school things got a little hairy with Julian at times. I have to admit, he surprised me with that one. You know about that stuff? I asked him. Me and school directors have a way of knowing about a lot of stuff. Do you have, like, secret security cameras in the hallways? I joked. And microphones and everywhere. He laughed. No, seriously. He laughed again. No, not seriously. Oh, but teachers know more than kids think, Augie. I wish you and Jack had come to me about the mean notes that were left in your lockers. How do you know about that? I said. I'm telling you, me the school directors know all. It wasn't that big a deal, I answered, and we wrote notes too. He smiled. I don't know if it's public yet, he said, though it would be soon anyway, but Julian Albans is not coming back to Beecher Prep next year. What? I said. I honestly couldn't hide how surprised I was. His parents don't think Beecher Prep is a good fit for him, Mr. Touchman continued, raising his shoulders. Wow, that's big news, I said. Yeah, I thought you should know. Then suddenly I noticed that the pumpkin portrait that used to be behind his desk was gone, and my drawing, my self-portrait as an animal that I drew for the New Year art show, was now framed and hanging behind his desk. Hey, that's mine, I pointed. Mr. Touchman turned around like he didn't know what I was talking about. Oh, that's right, he said, tapping his forehead. I've been meaning to show this to you for months now. My self-portrait as a dog. I nodded. I love this piece, Augie, he said. When your art teacher showed it to me, I asked her if I could keep it for my wall. I hope that's okay with you. Oh yeah, sure. What happened to the pumpkin portrait? Right behind you. Oh, yeah, nice. I've been meaning to ask you since I hung this up, he said, looking at it. Why did you choose to represent yourself as a dog? What do you mean? I answered. That was the assignment. He asked, but why a dog? He said, is it safe to assume that it was because of the story of the duckling that turns into a swan? No, I laughed, shaking my head. It's because I think I look like a dog. Oh, said Mr. Tushman, his eyes opening wide. He started laughing. Really? Here I was looking for symbolism and metaphors, and sometimes a dog is just a dog. Yeah, I guess, I said, not quite getting why he thought that was so funny. He laughed to himself for a good 30 seconds. Anyway, Augie, thanks for chatting with me, he said. Finally, I just wanted you to know it's truly a pleasure having you here at Bishop Prep, and I'm really looking forward to next year. He reached across the desk and we shook hands. See you tomorrow at graduation. See you tomorrow, Mr. Tushman.
The last precept. This was written on Mr. Browning's chalkboard when he walked into English class for the last time. Mr. Browning's June precept. Just follow the date and reach for the sign. The polyphonic spirit. Have a great summer vacation, Class 5B. It's been a great year and you've been a wonderful group of students. If you remember, please send me a postcard this summer with your personal precept. It can be something you made up for yourself or something you've read somewhere that means something to you. If so, don't forget the attribution, please. I really look forward to getting them. Tom Brown, 563 Sebastian Place, Bronx, NY 10053.
I'm Jyoti Hanh, and this is the chapter The Drop-Off. The graduation ceremony was held in the Beecher Prep Upper School auditorium. It was only about a 15-minute walk from our house to the other campus building. But that drove me because I was all dressed up and had on new shiny black shoes that weren't broken in yet, and I didn't want my feet to hurt. Students were supposed to arrive at the auditorium an hour before the ceremony started, but we got there even earlier. So we sat in the car and waited. Dad turned on the CD player, and our favorite song came on. We both smiled and started bobbing our heads to the music. Dad sang along with the song, and they would bicycle across town in the rain to bring you candy. Hey, is my tie on straight? I said. He looked and straightened it a tiny bit as he kept on singing, and John would buy the gown for you to wear to the prom. Does my hair look okay? I said. He smiled and nodded. Perfect. He said, you look great, Augie. Yeah, I put some gel in it this morning, I said, putting down the sun visor and looked in the little mirror. It doesn't look too puffy? No, it's very, very cool, Augie. I don't think you ever had it in this short before. Have you? No, I got it cut yesterday. I think it makes me look more grown up, don't you? Definitely. He was smiling, looked at me and nodding. But I'm the luckiest guy on the Lower East Side, 'cause I got wheels and you want to go for a ride. Look at you, Augie, he said, smiling from ear to ear. Look at you, looking so grown up and spiffy. I can't believe you're graduating from the 5th grade. I know, it's pretty awesome, right? I nodded. It felt like just yesterday and you started. Remember, I still had that Star Wars braid hanging from the back of my head? Oh my gosh, that's right, he said, rubbing his palm over his forehead. You hated that braid, didn't you, Dad? Hate is too strong a word, but I definitely didn't love it. You hated it, come on, admit it, I teased. No, I didn't hate it, he smiled, shaking his head. But I will admit to hating that astronaut helmet you used to wear, don't you remember? The one Miranda gave me? Of course I remember. I used to wear that thing all the time. Good God, I hated that thing. He laughed almost more to himself. I was so bummed when it got lost. I said, oh, it didn't get lost, he answered casually. I threw it out. Wait, what? I said, honestly, I didn't think I heard him right. The day is beautiful and so are you. He was singing. Dad, I said, turning the volume down. What? He said, you threw it out? He finally looked at my face and saw how mad I was. I couldn't believe he was being so matter-of-fact about the whole thing. I mean, to me, this was a major revelation, and he was acting like it was no big deal. Augie, I couldn't stand seeing that thing cover your face anymore, he said clumsily. Dad, I love that helmet. It means a lot to me. I was bummed beyond belief when it got lost. Don't you remember? Of course I remember, Audrey. He said softly. Oh, Audrey, don't be mad. I'm sorry. I just couldn't stand seeing you wear that thing on your head anymore, you know? I didn't think it was good for you. He was trying to look me in the eye, but I wouldn't look at him. Come on, Audrey, please try to understand. He continued, putting his hand under my chin and tilting my face toward him. You were wearing that helmet all the time. And all the real truth is, I miss seeing your face, Audrey. I know you don't always love it, but you have to understand, I love it. I love this face of yours, Audrey, completely and passionately, and it kind of broke my heart that you were always covering it up. He was squinting at me like he really wanted me to understand. Does Mom know? I said. He opened his eyes wide. No way, are you kidding? She would have killed me. She tore the place apart looking for that helmet, Dad. I said. I mean, she spent like a week looking for it in every closet, in the laundry room, everywhere. I know, he said, nodding. That's why she'd kill me. And then when he looked at me and something about his expression made me start laughing, which made him open his mouth wide like he just realized something. Wait a minute, Audrey, he said, pointing his finger at me. You have to promise me you will never tell Mommy anything about this. I smiled and rubbed my palms together like I was about to get very greedy. Let's see. I stretched, stroking my sheet. I'll be waiting that new Xbox when it comes out next month, and I'll definitely be wanting my own car in about 6 years. A red Porsche would be nice, and he started laughing. I love it when I'm the one who makes Dad laugh, since he's usually the funny man that gets everybody else laughing. Oh boy, he said, shaking his head. You really have grown up. The part of the song we love to sing the most started to play, and I turned up the volume. We both started singing. I'm the ugliest guy on the Lower East Side, but I got wheels and you want to go for a ride, want to go for a ride, want to go for a ride, want to go for a ride. We always sang this last part at the top of our lungs, trying to hold that last note as long as the guy who sang the song, which always made us crack up. While we were laughing, we noticed Jack had arrived and was walking over to our car. I started to get out. Hold on, said Dad. I just want to make sure you forgive me, okay? Yes, I forgive you. He looked at me gratefully. Thank you. But don't ever throw anything else of mine out again without telling me. I promise. I opened the door and got out just as Jack reached the car. Hey, Jack, I said. Hey, Audrey. Hey, Mr. Pullman. Say, Jack. How you doing, Jack? I said Dad. See you later, Dad. I said, closing the door. Good luck, guys. Dad called out, rolling out the front window. See you on the other side of the 5th grade. We waved and he turned on the ignition and started to pull away. But then I ran over and he stopped the car. I put my head in the window so Jack wouldn't hear what I was saying. Can you guys not kiss me a lot after graduation? I asked quietly. It's kind of embarrassing. I'll try my best. Tell Mom too. I don't think she'll be able to resist, Audrey, but I'll pass it along. Bye, dear old Dad. He smiled. Bye, my son.
118. Take your seats, everyone. Jack and I walked right behind a couple of 6th graders into the building, then followed them to the auditorium. Mrs. G was at the entrance, handing out the programs and telling kids where to go. 5th graders down the aisles to the left, she said. 6th graders go to the right. Everyone come in. Good morning. Go to your staging areas, staging areas. 5th graders to the left, 6th grade to the right. The auditorium was huge inside. Big sparkly chandeliers, red velvet walls, rows and rows and rows of cushioned seats leading up to the giant stage. We walked down the wide aisles and followed the sign to the 5th grade staging area, which was in a big room to the left of the stage. Inside were 4 rows of folding chairs facing the front of the room, which is where Miss Robin was standing, waving us in as soon as we walked in the room. Okay, kids, take your seats, she said, She was saying, pointing to the rows of chairs. Don't forget, you're sitting
emphatically. Come on, everybody, take your seats. Not too many kids had arrived yet, though, and the ones who hadn't weren't listening to her. Me and Jack were sword fighting with our rolled up programs. Hey guys, it was Summer walking over to us. She was wearing a light pink dress and I think a little makeup. Wow, Summer, you look awesome, I told her because she really did. Really,
Hi, I'm Vũ Khánh Chi and this is chapter 117. Take your seats, everyone, from the book Wonder by R.J. Palacio. Jack and I walked right behind a couple of sixth graders into the building and then followed them to the auditorium. Mrs. G was at the instrument, handing out the programs and telling kids where to go. Fifth graders down the aisle to the left, she said. Sixth graders, go to the right. Everyone come in. Good morning. Go to your staging areas. Fifth graders to the left, sixth grade to the right. The auditorium was huge inside. Big sparky chandeliers, red velvet walls, rows and rows and rows of cushioned seats leading up to the giant stage. We walked down the wide aisle and followed the signs to the fifth grade staging area, which was in a big room to the left of the stage. Inside were 4 rows of folding chairs facing the front of the room, which is where Miss Rubin was standing, waving us in as soon as we walked in the room. Okay, kids, take your seat, she was saying, pointing to the rows of chairs. Don't forget, you're sitting alphabetically. Come on, everybody, take your seats. Not too many kids had arrived yet, though, and the one who weren't listening to her. We and Jack were sword fighting with our rolled up programs. Hey guys, it was Summer walking over to us. She was wearing a light pink dress and I think a little makeup. Wow, Summer, you look awesome, I told her because she really did. Really? Thanks, you do too, Aki. Yeah, you look okay, Summer, said Jack kind of matter-of-factly. And for the first time, I realized that Jack had a crush on her. This is so exciting, isn't it? Said Summer. Yeah, kind of, I answered, nodding. Oh man, look at this program, said Jack, scratching his forehead. We're going to be here all freaking day. I looked at my program, headmaster's opening remarks, Dr. Harold Jansen's, middle school director's address, Mr. Lawrence Tushman, light and day, middle school choir, 5th grade student commencement address, Simina Chin, Pachelbel canon in D, middle school chamber music ensemble, 6th grade students under pressure. 6th grade student commencement address, Mark Antoniak, under pressure, middle school choir, middle school dean's address, Miss Jennifer Rubin, awards presentation, see back, roll call of names. Why do you think that? I asked. Because Mr. Jensen's speeches go on forever, said Jack. He's even worse than Tushman. My mom says she actually dozed off when he spoke last year, Summer added. What's the awards presentation? I asked. That's where they give medals to the biggest brainiacs, Jack answered. Which would mean Charlo and Simina would win everything in the 5th grade, like they won everything in the 4th grade and in the 3rd grade. Not in the 2nd grade. Not in the 2nd grade? I laughed. They didn't give those awards out in the 2nd grade, he answered. Maybe we'll win this year, I joked. Not unless they give awards for the most C's. For the most C's, he laughed. Everybody, take your seats. Miss Rubin started yelling louder now, like she was getting annoyed that nobody was listening. We have a lot to get through, so take your seats. Don't forget you're sitting in alphabetical order. A through G is the first row. H through N is the 2nd row. O through Q is the 3rd row. R through Z is the last row. Let's go, people. We should go sit down, said Summer, walking towards the front section. You guys are definitely coming over my house after this, right? I called out after her. Definitely, she said, taking her seat next to Suminachin. When did summer get so hot? Jack muttered in my ear. Shut up, dude, I said, laughing as we headed towards the third row. Seriously, when did that happen? He whispered, taking the seat next to mine. Mr. Will, Mr. Rubin shouted. Last time I checked, W came between R and Z, yes? Jack looked at her blankly. Dude, you're in the wrong row, I said. I am? And the face he made as he got up to leave, which was a mixture of looking completely confused and looking like he's just played a joke on someone, totally cracked me up.